Season in reviews are going to continue today with the Seattle Kraken this time around. And as for Seattle, it was another down year that has been getting progressively worse as the seasons go on. And I'm not so sure it's going to get better, if I'm being honest with you guys. I know they have a new regime coming in here with Botterill and all that, and Lane Lambert's the head coach, but I'm not 100% sure that that's going to fix everything. But first off, let's go over to 2022-23, where they made the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. They went 46, 28, and 8 for 100 points. They were 12th in the NHL. They defeated the Colorado Avalanche in an upset in round one, the Stanley Cup champions, but they lost in round two in game 7 to the Dallas Stars. They were just one win away from the Stanley Cup semifinals, which is wild. It's wild to think that they were at that point when you look at where the team is now. And the further we get away from that year, the more of a fluke it really does look like. In 23-24, they went 34, 35, and 13 for 81 points. They were 25th in the NHL, and they missed the playoffs. Not a good year from them. I really thought that somebody like Joey Dacker kind of carried a lot of the workload, and that was why they were only one game below 500. But they make some moves in the offseason. They signed Chandler Stevenson. They signed Brandon Montour, who weren't bad, I will say. They had points where they were pretty good, but overall, the team got worse. 35, 41, and 6 for 76 points. They were 27th in the NHL. Yeah, they had more wins, but they had way more regulation losses than they did last year. And those 13 OT loss points really kind of boosted their standings last year. Had even half of those been in regulation, this team would have been close to last in the NHL. And as a result, they got a lot worse this year. They actually didn't have that bad of a goal differential. They scored 247 goals, allowed 265 for a minus 18 difference. They were 18, 18, and 5 at home. They were 17, 23, and 1 on the road. They scored an average of 2.99 goals for per game, which is ranked 16th. So just the peak of average there, honestly. It's not good. It's not bad. It's average. And then their goals against was a 3.20, which was 20th. That is also essentially just slightly below average, honestly. So again, just another disappointing year in those remarks. Their power play and PK was the same thing. It was basically average. 18.9% on the power play, 23rd, and then 77.2 on the PK, which was 21st. So again, just at best, it's average. And that's pretty much how you can describe this team, if I'm being honest with you. It wasn't necessarily like a really bad season out of Seattle. Like, it wasn't a season where you're like, all right, things need to stop. But it definitely was a year where there were a lot of changes that were needed to be made. And I feel like they made changes, but I'm not necessarily sure they were the right ones, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. But anyways, let's get into the actual leading scorers here before I get into that. Jared McCann, 82 games played, 22 goals, 39 assists, which is first on the team, and then 61 points, which is also first on the team there as well. McCann is the only bright spot, essentially. There's a couple of other bright spots on this roster from this past year, but overall, McCann's the biggest bright one. Just his production in Seattle these last couple of years has been awesome. It's been absolutely phenomenal for the Kraken and what he's been able to produce. And I think that that is something that, can be taken away as a major positive in what was an overall just rough season from the Kraken. At least Jared McCann is giving you some hope here in terms of the offense. Chandler Stevenson was second in scoring, 78 games played, 13 goals, 38 assists for 51 points. I don't know. I think Stevenson had a pretty decent year, but I really needed more goal scoring from him. You only had 3 players who had more than 20 goals this past year. Sorry, 4 players who had more than 20 goals this past year. That is just not enough, being completely honest with you. You need more scoring from your depth, and they signed a guy like Stevenson who is more or less like a passing merchant, I would say, as opposed to getting somebody who can score for this team. They don't really have somebody that can do that, so it is a little bit of a question mark in terms of that. But overall, I'm not so sure about Stevenson. I think he was still a good ad, but I think he's just the start of what they need to fix here with the Kraken. Jaden Schwartz was third in scoring, 81 games played, 26 goals, was the first on the team, 23 assists for 49 points there as well this past year. Schwartz wasn't bad. I feel like, again, if they wanted to move on from him, they could get a decent return. Nothing crazy, but they still could get a good return from Schwartz. Again, they have plenty of players they could probably move on from to go full-blown tank here, but at least as of right now, like, the optimism for me is not very high with the Kraken. But I like Schwartz. I think he's a good forward. Is getting up there in age. I think the fact that he's leading this team in scoring is a little bit concerning, but hey, good on him. Now you get into some of the positives in Seattle, and I got back-to-back here for you guys. Starting off with Shane Wright, 79 games played, 19 goals, 25 assists for 44 points. I remember he started off the year pretty bad. He gets scratched by Dan Bylsma, and then he makes a comeback, essentially, after that. He started going on a little bit of a hot streak and started playing absolutely phenomenal since then, and he's had overall a really good season with the Seattle Kraken, and I think that is one of the major positives to take away from that year, too. One of the other positives for me is also Kaapo Kakko, who was acquired midway through the season. We'll get into that trade here in just a moment. But Kakko, 79 games played, 14 goals, 30 assists for 44 points. I don't know if it was maybe like, the new coaching boost on the team maybe, but Kaapo Kakko coming to Seattle was huge. It's really kind of rejuvenated his career more or less. And I think him and Shane Wright are major positives here, and things that you need to take away from this year and be like, man, those were things that really worked out well, because overall there wasn't a whole lot of things that did work out, and those two guys may be like your guys to build on here moving forward. Somebody who I'm a little bit concerned about in terms of his development, at least offensively, is Matty Beniers. 82 games played, 20 goals, 23 assists for 43 points. I just don't know what it is, but the offense isn't there. And I said, I think in the beginning of the season and us talking about a ton of stuff, I honestly said, like, I thought Beniers was going to have a good bounce back season, but I didn't see that this year. And I didn't see what I wanted to see there from Beniers. And I'm a little bit concerned in terms of that. I wanted more than just a 43-point season, honestly. 20 goals, 23 assists. It wasn't a bad year. It was a better year than last year slightly, but even still, I'm a little bit concerned about his overall development there. He's not a bad player, but for second overall pick, it's not the prettiest, if I'm being honest with you guys. Brandon Montour, 81 games played, 18 goals, 23 assists for 41 points. Montour had a good year. He played good the whole year, more or less. Was like somebody who was the backbone on a very bad Seattle defensive core, at least for before Vince Dunn came in. 62 games played, 11 goals, 28 assists, 39 points there as well. I thought Dunn had a decent year, too. Again, when you miss the first 20 games or so in the season, it's not ideal for you, and I thought that overall Dunn still had a pretty decent year besides that. Andre Burakovsky, 79 games played, 10 goals, 27 assists for 37 points. Burakovsky, not terrible, just not what he used to be. And then Eli Tolvanen led the team was second in scoring. 81 games played, 23 goals, 12 assists for 35 points. Tolvanen scored. He had a career high in goals, I believe. So he had a pretty decent year there in terms of those stats from him. But I like what I'm seeing from Tolvanen for sure. And then you look at the goaltending, which was a tale of really good and a tale of really bad. You had Joey Dackard was your leading guy, obviously, 27, 23, and 5 with a 2.75 goals against average and a .906 save percentage. I thought Dackard was pretty decent, honestly. I didn't think he was too bad. Overall, good season from him. And then Philip Grubauer, who was pretty damn bad. 8, 17, and 1 with a 3.49 and a .875. He found himself in the minors this past year. Just overall a terrible year from Philip Grubauer, and I'm not a fan of what he's done. They are going to keep him around, however. I've waited long enough to find that out. If I'm being honest with you, I don't think it's a terrible move to keep him around because, again, if you buy him out, you're going to be paying him a lot more for the next couple of years, and I'm just not so sure that, maybe that's the smartest idea in the world. I don't hate keeping him around, but, again, I don't know. I think you're going to be paying him some decent money, especially like in years where you might be good. So we'll have to see there what happens with Grubauer. But a little bit interesting for sure. He had a rough season. Hopefully he can be better next year. Some of the trades that Seattle made at the trade deadline and throughout this past year. Obviously, I mentioned the Kako trade where they acquired Kako from the Rangers in exchange for Will Borgen, a 25 third and a 25 sixth. So just, you give up some mid to late round picks. Borgen wasn't a big player on Seattle. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't a big name guy on Seattle. Kako has been a way better impact player than Borgen would have ever been. So I really like Kako there. I like that ad a lot. And then the big one, and this one kind of, I'm going to be honest, it really did kind of give Ron Francis the promotion. Like, from what I'm seeing, it really did give him the promotion, to be honest with you. So they traded Yanni Gourde, Oliver Bjorkstrand, a 26th fifth, and Kyle Aucoin over to the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for Mikey Eisemont, a 2026 first, a 2027 first, a 2025 third, or a 2025 second, a 2028 third, and a 2029 third. So that's 5 picks there that they acquired in that deal alone. And I think that really, again, like, got the promotion. You get 2 first-round picks. Again, I'm not sure they're going to be like high first-round picks, but they're still first-round picks. That's picks you can use throughout the next season or so. It's really good. It's good. It's a good look there for Seattle, especially if they wanted to buy in and maybe trade away those picks and maybe get something better. It's not a bad idea. But yeah, that really did get Ron Francis the promotion. And they also acquired a 2027 second round pick for Chris Tanev, or Brandon Tanev as well, heading over to Winnipeg. So overall, the trade market was very good from Francis. He made some pretty good trades. But apart from that, the signings and all that, wasn't that optimistic about them, to be honest with you guys. So not really a fan of him getting a promotion and Jim Bronnerl becoming the GM. But maybe I'll be wrong. We'll see. So we'll look into the American Hockey League and all that good stuff. Let's take a look at the Coachella Valley Firebirds, who did not make it to the Calder Cup final this past year, but coming off of a decent year even still. 37, 25, and 5 for 84 points. They were 14th in the AHL this past year. They defeated the Calgary Wranglers in round 1. I believe they lost in round 2. But overall, not a bad year from the Firebirds. Obviously, it's a downgrade from last year, but you lose Dan Balsma, you lose Jessica Campbell up to the NHL. So again, it's a lot of changes there down below in Coachella Valley. But I thought overall it wasn't a bad year. Their leading scorers, Ben Myers, led the team, 57 games played, 23 goals, 28 assists for 51 points. Yanni Nyman, who we'll get into here in a moment, 58 games played, 28 goals, 16 assists for 44 points as well. Logan Morrison, 72 games played, 14 goals, 28 assists, 42 points. Nicholas Broillard, however we say it. 69 games played, 7 goals, 31 assists for 38 points. And then Max Lajoie, 70 games played, 4 goals, 34 assists for 38 points as well. So overall, decent AHL depth scoring. Guys you can maybe call up to the NHL. They called up a few of those guys on multiple occasions this past year. So a good positive there to pull from the American Hockey League. You have some guys down there developing and getting ready to go for the NHL, possibly maybe next year. Who knows? In the prospect pool, there's some decent players down there for sure. You start off with Berkeley Catton, 57 games played, 38 goals, 71 assists for 109 points in the WHO with Kelowna, I believe. He had a pretty decent year. It's actually a pretty good year, actually. Catton's going to be something good. I would imagine he maybe spends another year down in the WHL. I wouldn't be shocked, though, if he is in the AHL. Maybe, but overall, I think you have to be 20 to make it to the AHL, so he may not be eligible just yet, but is getting there. Yanni Nyman, as I said, in the AHL scores, 58 games played, 28 goals, 16 assists, 44 points. Actually played 12 games in the NHL this past season, so Nyman had a pretty decent year there. I think he's somebody who was a second-round pick a couple of years ago and has become somebody who I'm looking forward to seeing here in the future for the Kraken. I think he could be a full-timer next season. You also have Oscar Fisker Molgaard, who played in the SHL, 38 games played, 5 goals, 14 assists for 19 points. Had 7 games in the AHL this past year. I would imagine that Molgaard may be in the AHL full-time next year, but a decent year for a younger player in the SHL, 19 points in 38 games played. It's not really high scoring over there, so seeing those numbers has to make you a little bit happy, to be honest with you. So I like that there a lot from Molgard and the Kraken. Nicholas Kako, who was in the AHL as well, is a goaltender at that. 33 games played, 20, 12, and 2, with a 2.26 and a .913. I believe he played a game this year in the NHL. I'm 95% sure he's played a game in the NHL, so good on him for getting one start. I think this is somebody we could see in the NHL in the future. He might be a year or two away even still, but overall, he's somebody I'm looking forward to seeing there, and maybe there's some little beef there with him and Joey Dackard. There won't be, don't worry. Edward Sale is the last prospect as well. 51 games played, 6 goals, 15 assists for 21 points as well. I am slightly concerned about Sale's development. I don't think he's going to be what he was projected to be when he was drafted. I think he's going to be somebody who kind of flops a little bit, but still could be a good NHLer, maybe a third or fourth line role type guy. But overall, I'm not really confident in what he's going to become here in the future moving forward. So that's your pool, honestly. And notice how all of those players are forwards. And I really do think, and LeBlanc's been saying it a lot in the podcast, to draft a defenseman. Like, that's the biggest thing that he's been saying. I feel like Seattle may go down that road. We'll have to find out, but I feel like they really needed a defensive prospect here within this organization. Their draft capital is not terrible. A first-round pick, 2 second-round picks. One of them is Toronto, 2 fourths. One of them is Dallas, a 5th and a 7th. So nothing too crazy there in terms of like your overall draft capital, but I think they're really gearing up for the next 2 seasons to be a really big drafting year for these teams. I think they have a lot of cap space coming up there as well to sign their UFAs and RFAs, but honestly, there's not a lot of names. You have Mikey Izemont, you have Cale Fleury, and then Josh Mahura was one of them, but he got signed this past week. So, again, that's a guy you can cross off your list there. And then on your RFAs, you have some more bigger names, Capo Kako and Ty Cartier, and then Riker Evans there as well as another player too. Kako could be asking for some decent money, same with Cartier. But overall, you don't have a lot of big-name guys that you have to sign. Your biggest guy is Kako, honestly. So I think overall, Seattle has the chance here to maybe make a big splash in free agency. I'm not sure that's the best idea to really do, to be honest with you, with the state of this current team. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'm not very confident in Seattle's management moving forward. From what I can tell, most people aren't either. I guess we'll have to see what happens here in the offseason or in the draft and free agency, and maybe as time goes on, I'll be more confident with Lane Lambert, but right now, I'm not so confident in Seattle getting anywhere better than average, to be honest with you. So let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.